Todd, greetings. This is I, Dwight Kurt Schrute. I wanted to say happy holidays to you. Congratulations on your game development, game dev breakdown, whatever that is. Sounds idiotic to me. But I wanted to remind you, please don't be an idiot. Have a wonderful 2020. And that is all. Dwight out. Don't be an idiot. Goodbye.
My mom gave birth in 1985. I was bluer than a Pac-Man ghost, barely alive. In the Cold War, my only blanket was Tetris. I played Rampart with Reagan, rampage the world for breakfast. The laundromat was my sanctuary, that arcade was my church. I thought I was...
Hey everybody, Todd here. Welcome back to Game Dev Breakdown, and today we're talking to my friend David Jagneaux from UploadVR and many other things around the web. He's the guy. That's a running joke on Twitter. He's the main guy to talk to about VR on Twitter and around the web. So he's going to shed some light on some things we've been sort of hinting at around the podcast and around the Patreon. And he'll share some legit expertise because I don't really know what I'm talking about. I'm just getting started. And he'll be very helpful. So here's my chat with David. Hello.
Okay, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. This is pretty normal. I don't actually have a lot of Skype calls where we don't have to play a little phone tag, do a little troubleshooting.
Yeah, which is so weird by now. Like, you would think it would just work, but...
Well, what was funny was when I was doing GDC and Microsoft had brought me out to talk to their people about their speakers and everything, and we couldn't get it going between us either. And it was
my God.
This is y'all's thing now, right?
That's hilarious.
So that was a good time, but so you're doing CES coverage right now.
Yeah, the show's pretty much over, but we are trying to figure out timing on doing our awards and stuff, and someone at the show is trying to track down someone from NVIDIA because they won one of our awards, but NVIDIA left already, so they're having to find a representative of some kind, and yeah, it's been a bit of a mess, but all good.
Can have somebody completely random accept on behalf of,
Yeah. Or just hold it up next to the logo or something.
Yeah, this guy works here at the venue. So yeah, to sort of set the table, different ways to describe you, senior editor, UploadVR, yeah?
Yeah, that's my full-time thing.
And you also contribute to Forbes Games, IGN, among others?
Yeah.
Very cool. So who's busier than an editor at a site like that? It's a tough gig, I know.
Yeah, especially with, it's kind of a double-edged sword because you have, a site like UploadVR is obviously very focused on, a niche, so like the VR AR industry is just kind of a subset of overall gaming, but then there are so many applications for VR and AR outside of video games. Yeah. And so our audience is actually very, very diverse, where we have a lot of traditional gamers, people that are excited for Half-Life, that want to play Skyrim, that want to do all the traditional gaming things with VR headsets. But then outside of that, you also have, people that use VR for surgery, and you have people that use VR for real estate, for architecture, for just computer programming, for entertainment, for, so many things that have nothing to do with video games. It's kind of becoming its own industry, and it's interesting because if you look at the way computers work, that's kind of the same thing. There are people that use their computers for gaming, but then there are also people that don't play video games that have a computer that could, run the latest games if they wanted, but it's actually used for 3D modeling and architecture and, all the same things VR is used for. So It's just kind of becoming this new, sort of display technology, this new, the final. A lot of people describe it as like the thing that could potentially one day kill the monitor, or like a screen killer sort of device. And it's really interesting. There's a lot going on, and it's funny because, you would think a site that only writes about VR, like, oh, what do you write about all day? There's not that many new things happening, but it's the more you look into, a topic like VR, the more you'll find, there's so many things we just don't have time to cover, and we miss a lot of stuff just out of bandwidth, and we have to turn down a lot of events, and the industry is growing so rapidly, and it's very exciting. And December this past month was the biggest month of traffic for our site ever.
Yeah.
So it's very much trending upward. So it's very, very exciting.
That's one reason I thought you'd be an interesting person to have on for a chat, because the podcast audience, I hear from a lot of people who are enthusiastic about VR and they're using VR for development of different kinds and they're not doing games. I think in the Patreon group specifically, there are like 3 people who work in VR, none are doing games, and they're interested in starting to do games, but they're using it in like lab applications and visualization of different kinds. And my first 2 VR contracts were non-games. One was for like training for the electrical industry, which was interesting. And we worked on a demo for Lenovo also for a trade show. And it was a lot of fun. Like it makes these things very interesting to look at for the first time. People talking about, here's how we get electricity from point A to point B. And instead you can go, here, look at this, hold this in VR, watch this thing, walk through this wind turbine. It's all very cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Tell me this. Some of the most recent stuff I've seen from you has been coverage of like new finger tracking and hand gestures and stuff with like Quest and different Oculus headsets. How's that looking right now?
It's very interesting, because I think the first time I tried that sort of technology was probably like CES 2018 or even GDC 2017. There were companies working on that kind of stuff a while ago, whether it be a wearable glove that translates to your hand in VR, or camera-based tracking, or I've even tried some different gloves and hand-based things that simulate haptic feedback that make it feel like you're actually touching things and holding things and have like weight to them, and you can feel textures, and all that kind of stuff is really cool and amazing. But for right now, in terms of like actual use cases for consumers or even enterprise level use cases, there's not a whole lot. And I think a lot of that tech is still very much in flux, in development. The one that's out for Quest right now, I mean, the reason that it came out earlier than expected is because I think Oculus wanted developers to start making stuff for it as soon as possible. Because right now on Quest, the only thing you can do is navigate the UI. You can kind of click a few buttons. You can browse. I think you can use the web browser. You can watch Oculus TV stuff, and that's about it.
Yeah.
There are some experimental things on SideQuest, which it's a program you can use to sideload content on your Quest that isn't on the store. And there are some things on there. There's like a piano simulator, and I've seen a few things that have you, like using your hand to make gestures and kind of like attack enemies that are running around like little, sort of lemmings, but you kill them sort of style stuff. There's cool stuff out there. I love the idea, but I'm just curious to see where it goes.
Yeah, as soon as I saw it, almost as soon as they put it out to sort of preview, they got it out into the hands of devs, like you said. I think it's already included in the Unity Oculus integration kit. I haven't tried anything with it yet, but I think they got it out right away. I downloaded it just to see, how it worked, and I thought it was interesting, but I've heard a lot of people say, I'm not really ready to give up controllers of some kind, and ultimately I think I agree with that. I think it's going to be a while before we don't have any need for that, or, it's not comfortable to us to have something in your hands,
Yeah, especially when it comes to gaming. Even outside of the traditional view of games where, things like analog sticks and buttons are needed, but there are so many VR games where just the feeling of having something in your hand is just as important as being able to move your hands at all. Like I couldn't imagine playing like for like a shooter, like Onward or Pavlov or one of those VR shooters. If I didn't have something in my hand, that would, I don't know, it just wouldn't feel the same. Like miming pulling a trigger would just feel weird. And like a game like Asgard's Wrath or Skyrim, like swinging nothing in my hand. Like I want some weight to feel like there's something there. So it's just, I think it's one of those things that'll be, kind of rolled into the technology as something that can be used for some applications and not others.
Yeah.
Like media viewing makes a lot of sense. And Already the way they have it now, it's nice that you can turn it on so that your hands pop up even if they're not interacting with anything. Because I know for me personally, whenever I demo a VR headset, especially like going back to Gear VR, one of the first things that like an old family member will do is reach out with their hands.
Yeah.
And even though they're just looking at a 360 photo, they think, "Oh, I'm going to reach out with my hands, and it feels like I'm there." But if you could actually have their hands show up, like that would be a lot better. Little simple things like that make a difference.
There was even very nice use of that back on the Kinect before that became sort of yesterday's garbage. I thought they actually got that interface down pretty well before they completely threw that out. So speaking of non-game uses of VR, you do UploadVR's sort of virtual reality podcast. And I mean, when I say that, people can certainly listen on iTunes or anywhere normal podcasts are found, but you also have sort of a virtual studio that you do live shows from on YouTube. So how long have you been doing that, and sort of how's that going? Because that's very interesting.
Oh, it's so cool. I'm glad you brought that up. It's like one of my favorite things that we've done. And shout out to David Heaney at Upload. He's one of our reporters and staff writers and everything. He's a very technically minded person. Yeah. And he is also, has a lot of development experience. He has a degree in software development. And so he was actually a developer first, and he sort of fell into the role of he has now at Upload. So he entirely created that on his own. It's built in Unity, and it's just kind of a Unity environment that he has some low poly assets in, little desks and chairs and like a computer monitor and that kind of stuff. But then when you're in it, it is a shared virtual space that uses Oculus's avatar system. Yeah. So we just go into the Oculus menu on Quest or Go or Rift, and we customize our avatar, and we load in whenever we launch the app. We're sitting in whatever seat he has assigned us, and our name pops up on the front so people can see it. And he's actually built, I think, 7 or 8 cameras into the environment. Nice. That on his end, he's outside of VR, controlling it from the computer monitor like a producer. And so he has different functions on the keyboard he hits where each button will go to a different camera. And so that gives him control. And then he uses OBS to overlay images and overlay animations and different stuff like that. So it looks like a news show, where for us, we're just sitting at a desk talking, and then he handles everything else.
Hey, Daddy.
Oh, hey, buddy, what's up? Sorry.
It's okay.
The train table just turned the track into tracks.
Okay. He's just kind of waiting for my mother-in-law. Yeah, as I was watching that podcast for the first couple of times, I thought, the more I watched it, I thought, like, there's a lot to this. There's clearly a lot being controlled and stuff, and you guys inadvertently had one of the funniest podcast moments I ever saw early on, because you were going around the panel introducing people one time, and you got to somebody who started gesturing, and their expressions were changed. They were looking around the studio, and somebody had to break in and go, "Hey, you're muted or something. We can't hear you." And his avatar just kind of like sunk. He was like looking at the ground. So it's worth going back to see that, and it really is cool what you guys set up there.
Yeah, and then what we do as well is usually most normal episodes. We haven't had a normal episode in a while because we had we had a Half-Life Alyx special, then we had the Game of the Year special, then we had a CES show. So we haven't had a normal weekly show in a while. But once we get back to that, what we do at the end is we have a one-on-one interview segment where one of the people from Upload is teleported to the other chair on the other side of the room, and we have our guest teleported over there. And then we're sitting face to face, kind of a one-on-one, like 60-minute interview style. And he has different cameras over there that do different angles. So we can zoom in on one person's face, whoever's asking a question, whoever's talking, etc. And then the great thing about it is, even though we're in VR, Heaney has actually installed monitors that have YouTube chat on them. So we can see comments live as they come in. We have little screens and notepads that we have on our desktop. We just save a text file with our notes, and then it automatically loads it into VR. He has it all set up to do that. They're all networked too, so I can look over and see who the person next to me. I can see their notes. So it's such a great thing that he's built, and it's one of the things I look forward to most every week, because it feels like I'm getting to hang out with my coworkers, even though we're all remote. Heaney's in Ireland. Jamie's in the UK. We've got, Ian is down in LA. I'm up near San Francisco. Our main host is in Seattle, Kyle. So, I mean, we're all over the place, and it feels like we're in the same room.
I love hearing how that works and getting even more sort of behind the scenes about that, because that really is a cool thing you guys put together. I haven't really even thought about this till now. Is there a way for people to put on a headset and watch the live show or anything like that yet?
So what we would love to do is have the ability for you to feel like you're in the audience and you're there with us.
Yeah.
It's totally possible. It's just not something that's on the very near future roadmap. It just hasn't been a priority. There are, other features and stuff that we want to iron out, and there's still some glitches that happen every now and then. So all that stuff takes precedent. But what you can do is, if you're familiar with Big Screen, which is it's a free social app where you can, you can share your desktop with people, you can watch videos and hang out. They have a separate portion of it called Big Screen TV, where they do like actual events that are, like live, sort of shared experiences. And every week, you can watch the download. We call it the VR download. You can watch it in Big Screen every week. So we have that all set up with them. So they host a watch party where people can hang out inside VR, but they're watching it on a screen, like a TV. But you can do it in VR. Yeah,
that's still pretty good. I mean, the YouTube integration's decent. So
yeah.
That'd be an interesting thing to do. So, and I'm sure there's not just unlimited time and budget to, be thinking about new features for this thing. It just happens to be really cool.
Yeah, because you know how startups go. We're, a very small team and everyone wears a lot of hats. I do live streaming. I do a lot of, news writing when I need to. I review games. I do a lot of interviews. I go to events. I do the podcast. I do a lot of social stuff. I edit a lot of videos. I make the videos too. And Heaney is, obviously has done a great job, but he splits that time with actual, coverage and writing and stuff like that too. So everyone just has so many different things to do.
Yeah, that's something I picked up very fast when I first got into freelancing myself. I'm pretty sure we met during the ZAM days.
Oh, probably. Yeah.
That was like everyone's doing everything they can. And so I got the furthest with ZAM just by being available. I know you guys are doing a million things. If I can take one off your plate, just send it my way.
Yeah. And as a freelancer, I'm sure this is true outside of writing as well, just, any sort of freelance occupation. But, flexibility, availability, and having a wide skill set, like those three things can really take you far. And that's something I've learned is especially with the work that I've done at IGN, I try to do as much as I can to take the load off, because obviously IGN is a multifaceted media conglomerate at this point. They don't just write about video games. It's one of the top sites in the world. They have so much going on. Yeah. And I try to just take as much load off as I can. So whenever I do a review, I write the written version of the review. I turn that into a 800-word script. I annotate the script with which clips to use, what timestamp, and which pieces of footage. I record the footage. Sometimes I do the VO for the videos as well. And so just if you have that skill set where you can do more than just I'm a freelance journalist. Yeah, but there's so many other things that I can do. So that I think that's super important.
Yeah. So I'm so glad we sort of hit that topic right away of VR sort of being much more than just games.
Yeah.
Like, for example, did you get that Oculus user research survey not too long ago? You probably get a lot of this stuff, but the one I'm thinking of specifically sort of made it very clear they're interested in applications of allowing you to meet people in VR. And, do you want to, one of the questions was, to what extent are you interested in becoming friends with people you meet in VR? And all the questions were along those lines. And I thought, it really seems like they're trying to sort of prove that we would be approving of, hey, go create these new social experiences and stuff like that. Do you think that's sort of the direction they want to go?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. They're building towards their next social app. It's called Horizons, and that is directly tied to Facebook. Yeah. So whenever you use Horizons, you're actually using your Facebook account. And so it's all, like your actual name and all that stuff. And they want everyone to use their real identities. And so I think that even extends to what they have now with Oculus venues, where you can watch live shows and go to events and concerts in VR. That's tied to your Facebook as well. You have to have a Facebook account to use venues. And while you're in there, you have the option of just being in there alone. But if you go in there and meet other people, you can, meet other people. You see their avatars, you see their names, you can interact, you can add each other on, in the Oculus interface. And they've added a lot more social features as well. They have like actual text messaging in the app now. So I mean, they're definitely moving that way. And it's interesting because I feel like so much of the internet is the exact opposite.
Yeah.
There's so much anonymity, and just people like me, I use my real name everywhere just because I'm that's kind of what you do in this line of work. But there's so many people on Reddit, on Twitter, on wherever that aren't using their real name, that try to keep that stuff hidden. They don't post pictures of themselves or anything. And it's really wild because now they're moving towards this reality of having a shared digital world that we can live in VR. It's kind of merging with our real society in an interesting way.
Yeah, and these questions got me thinking about stuff like that, and I was assuming that's basically where their head was at, but it got me thinking, like, that sort of does hinge on us being open to interacting more with people we don't necessarily know, because, like, I would love to have a version of this for my friends and family, but, my aunts and uncles don't have headsets. My little cousin can't afford the Quest right now, and he's busy playing Fortnite, and if we sort of develop this sort of like, I'd rather not do this with strangers, but I guess it kind of hinges on a certain degree of that.
Yeah, and I think it's also sort of hinging on the notion that if you are forced to use your actual name and identity, then it will be a more welcoming experience. Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of where the logic comes from, because if I go on Call of Duty and I hear, all these like racial slurs and insults and stuff from people, or even on Roblox, like a kid's platform is full of terrible stuff because of the anonymity.
Yeah.
And so I think if, we have a world where you go into VR and you have an avatar that looks like you have your name floating above your head, it's your voice, it's your Facebook account that someone can report directly, like you're probably going to be more genuine and not terrible. I think that's the goal. So I think it would be more accessible and welcoming. And I know for me that in things like VR Chat and Rec Room, like some of the current social VR applications, some of the people I've met in there have been really, 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 really nice and just really great to hang out with. And it's meeting someone in, on Twitter or in a chat room or even in a non-VR game. It's very different compared to meeting someone in VR. It really does feel like you've met that person, especially if they're using an avatar that looks like them. Yeah, and it's hard to describe. It's really wild. Like just yesterday, we did our recent CES episode of the VR Download, and I realized that our video producer, the person that does pretty much all of our pre-made packaged video content on our YouTube, all of our showcases that we do for like E3 and stuff, and all the interview videos and event coverage, all those videos she does. Her name's Zena. And I had never met her in person, and we just for whatever reason have never actually did a VR thing together using our actual avatars. Mm-hmm. And so we sat next to each other in the VR Download, sitting there in the studio, and I looked over and I was like, it feels like I'm meeting you for the first time. I've never actually met you. And she was like, yeah, and we shook hands and stuff. Like it was a really cool moment.
That is cool. What'd be interesting is VR role play where you sort of like they do in Grand Theft Auto, where you pretend to be cops investigating like a hate crime that took place. Something fun to watch on stream or something.
Yeah, that would be great. And speaking of like role play stuff, there's this VR app. It's called The Under Presents. Mm-hmm. It's by the same developers that did virtual reality, if you know of that one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's very self-aware and very kind of meta, but what it's about is you kind of go into this virtual world and you have a mixture of NPCs and player-controlled live actors that are intermingling at all times.
Yeah.
So like developers are in there on voice chat playing characters alongside NPCs, and it's sort of this weird magical combination of the two where you aren't sure who is a person who isn't, and it's a really cool experience.
That's so odd and so geeky, but at the same time, I'm like very optimistic about things like that. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, me too. Stuff like that reminds me of Westworld. It's so awesome.
Yeah,
like that. I love stuff like that.
That is.
There was a really cool game that was on Kickstarter. It failed and didn't take off, but they had a cool concept where it was a 3D sort of Dungeons and Dragons environment where you could build out all of the dungeons and the towns and stuff, and then as a DM you would take control of the NPCs inside of the world, and the players would control their player characters, and you would go through and have it be like D&D, but you would just physically take control of NPCs instead, and it was a really cool idea.
I love that. Yeah. So we're for sure going to get more of that, and we'll sort of figure out the role of that kind of experience in our gaming lives and in our non-gaming lives for sure. Before I let you go, tell me your favorite thing or two from CES. What really got you excited?
So I wasn't there this year, so I didn't try anything for myself, but I am really, really intrigued by the Panasonic VR goggles. Ian tried those, and he was extremely impressed, which, is in and of itself, noteworthy, but it goes even further because he is very, very vocal about his disdain for 3DoF VR. He really doesn't like it. And the Panasonic goggles are 3DoF, so they didn't have any positional tracking yet. And he was still blown away. And nice. I think the reason for that is because of the display. It uses, really, really, really small micro display OLEDs. And it actually has, I think it's the first VR display that has HDR. And so it just really crisp. He said he didn't notice any screen door at all. And this is a guy that's been covering VR since before Oculus. So he knows VR and he has seen plenty of stuff. And so to have that come from him, that made me really excited to see where that sort of technology goes. I don't know if they'll ever release an actual product. It might just be a proof of concept prototype type thing, but that kind of stuff trickles down to consumer stuff years in the future. So I'm excited to see what happens with that. And the other thing would probably be the thing that actually won our best of show, and that's the haptics gloves. That's HAPTX. Those are one of the gloves that let you simulate, touch and haptic feedback. So while you wear the headset, you put the gloves on, and they have these little, I don't even know what they're called or how they work really, but they're kind of like little sensors on the fingertips and along your fingers that there's a box that they're plugged into that's really large at the moment, but they said that it's going to get smaller eventually. That uses valves and air pressure and stuff to provide that sensation to your fingers when you touch something inside VR. It feels like you're actually touching it. Huh. And so it's Ian was really impressed by that too, and he was blown away by it. And then they use that same technology to then have you telepresence control a robot. So nice. You're using the gloves to move your hands around, and then the robot is mimicking, one-to-one exactly what you're doing, so you can pick up stuff in the real world and have it feeling in your hand. And so that kind of stuff is so cool to me. I love the idea of that.
Yeah, that's very exciting. That's worth looking up for sure.
Yeah. We have an interview on our YouTube, so yeah, plug. There's a plug.
Yeah. Do the rest of the plugs, and I'll get you back to work. Yeah, let us know where we can find you.
Sure. So full-time, like I said at the beginning, I'm one of the editors at UploadVR, so that's uploadvr.com. You can also find us at YouTube, youtube.com/uploadvr. That's where we stream the VR Download podcast we were talking about earlier every Thursday at 10:30. That's Pacific time. Then beyond that, you can find my freelance work at a bunch of different places right now, mostly IGN and Forbes. But I do write for Game Skinny, and I've written for Game Crate from the Newegg site, and PC Gamer. I've written a couple times for Variety, Polygon, Vice, and just a lot of places. It's hard to remember all the places, but right now IGN and Forbes are the main places I do freelance for. And you can find me on Twitter. So that's at David_Jagneaux, Jagneaux.
And I've run into your work by accident, so also look for that. Like the last time was I was searching for how to transfer my captured videos from my Quest to my PC, and you wrote the article that I was looking for at the time. So
there you go.
Check articles you're already reading. If
you're ever in Barnes & Noble, you can find my Roblox book, that which is a weird thing to say. That was a weird thing, yeah.
No, but learn how to avoid all the terrible things on Roblox.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, David, thanks for your time, man.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks again to David. He's just a great guest and a fun guy to have around on social media. If you all enjoy Game Dev Breakdown, we would love to have you subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, anywhere you can find podcasts, we are there. So check us out there. Show notes are at codewriteplay.com, and we're also doing some things at Patreon at patreon.com/codewriteplay. Send us a message, leave us a review, rate the podcast. That all helps us get out to a wider audience, and we love hearing from you. So let us know what you're thinking about, what you're working on, and we'll be back with more good stuff very soon. Take care, everybody.